back to the Late Late Show, where my next guest is a BAFTA, Emmy and Olivier Award winner who has quite simply written it all. 7 sitcoms, 16 novels, 3 movies, 4 musicals and more jokes that even he can remember. Would you please welcome the creator of The Young Ones, Blackadder, and We Will Rock You, Ben Elton! Here, boy. Welcome to the show, Ben. What are you going to sing for us tonight?
Wasn't that amazing? It's so good to be back on the Late Late. I mean, no other show in the world does this anymore. A live band. My wife's a bass player. That's how I met her. You know, like live rock and roll's a big part of my life. So great to see musicians working in a studio again.
Yeah, no.
It's fantastic.
Look, it's great to have you back.
Very nice.
I mean, I said it in the intro, you've pretty much written everything. That is just a warm-up for your latest character. He is called Ben Elton.
My first work of non-fiction.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about him.
Well, I've written my autobiography, and it's called What Have I Done? Which was a suggestion from Aid Edmondson, actually. I couldn't decide what to call it, and I think he was playing on the sort of slightly, you know, it's a great title for a biography, What Have I Done? Well, it's all in there, but also that kind of, what have I done, you know? How much crap can you cop for writing jokes? So, yeah, it's my whole life in one volume. I waited until I'd lived most of my life, so you'll find it all in there.
I mean, the thing that I just couldn't believe was how young you were when you wrote that pilot for The Young Ones. I mean, you were just a young one yourself. 21?
21, yeah. It was an amazing month. I just graduated, and I'd met Rick Mail and Aid Edmondson. Oh, there they are, the young ones. I'd met them at university, but they were a couple of years above me. And I'd just come down to London having graduated, and a phone rings. I mean, I'd seen Rick on and off over the couple of years, and he said, "Farty, get to the pub right now. I've got something to talk about." And he'd had this embryonic idea for a sort of crazy youth set sitcom, and he wanted me to write it because he'd seen a lot of my comic plays at university and everything. There we are on the road together, me and Rick, and yeah, it was a wonderful time, and I was only 21, so it was a hell of a start.
I mean, how did that change your life?
Well, I mean, I'd always written. I've been writing since I was 10 or 11. I've always had this, compulsion-driven. People always... It almost sounds like it's dysfunctional, but it isn't. You know, a desire to create in whatever form is something I think everybody has. You know, whether it's just doodling or working in your shed or whatever. I was just suddenly getting paid for what I was doing anyway, and I carried on doing it. And 45 years later, I'm still doing it.
I mean, all of the names in this book, it's like just a golden generation of comedy. You know, you had Rick and Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie, Robbie Coltrane, you wrote with Richard Curtis. I mean...
That's the young ones. Look at it. Oh, my... No, that's Al Fresco. Yes, there's Emma Thompson leaning on my shoulder. My goodness gracious. She interviewed me about this book at Ely Cathedral. It was very posh because she's Dame Emma Thompson now. And, in fact, most of my friends seem to have got ennobled. Stephen's just got knighted. They're giving me nothing. Not even so much as... not even an obie. The Australians are giving me an Order of Australia, but the Brits, nothing. Nothing.
And that's why you're welcome in Ireland.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, there's a lot of friends in the book. I mean,
so whenever she interviewed you, did the Petty Snog story come up? Tell us about this.
Oh, yes, that's... I first met Em when I was 21. And she was 21, and we'd been assembled for this show, which didn't work. It was called Al Fresco. And in one day, I walked into this office, and I met Emma Thompson, Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie, and Robbie Coltrane, all on that day. And we were all in this sketch show, which complete failure. I mean, seldom in the history of television has anything ever been less than the sum of its parts, more fundamentally than that show was. But great friendships were made, and obviously Robbie's gone now, although I was privileged to speak at his memorial because he remained a friend all my life, and they all did. I think that's... The book is essentially, you know, about so much love and friendship, really. I've been so lucky to meet so many talented and wonderful people, all of whom became my friends and remain so. You know, people say, "Oh, you're all so famous and friendly," but we all knew each other before we were famous. And it was a lucky generation, and I was very lucky to be a part of it. And there's a lot of good anecdotes, like the pity snog, because I fell desperately in love with Emma. I mean, we'd been working together for a few weeks, and one day I just woke up, and my friendship had turned into this heartbreaking crush. And I told Stephen Hugh about it. I said, oh my God, I think I've fallen in love with Emma. And I'll never forget Stephen's withering look. He said, oh God, not you too. Every man falls in love with her in the end, even the gay ones. And I never got far. She did let me have a snog in a taxi once, but I think it was very much a pity snog. And I tell that story with her permission. I hasten to add. I rang her up. I said, Em, do you mind if I talk about that taxi ride? And she said, I'd be horrified if you didn't. If it's not in that book, I shall sue you. So yeah, a lot of good anecdotes.
I mean, there's lots of good stories. You mentioned Stephen there. I didn't realise you saved his life.
I did. I saved his life on one very dramatic night. We were out together. We'd had a lovely dinner and we'd gone back to the place where he was staying. It was actually Douglas Adams' house, who was in LA at the time, a bloke who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah. And Stephen was house-sitting for him. Anyway, Stephen had this awful asthma attack. It was a result of some weird Belgian beer he was drinking. He never drinks beer. I mean, you can't imagine Sir Stephen drinking beer. But he had one and it reacted wrong. And yeah, it was a very terrifying night. He was nearly dying and I got him in a cab and managed to get him to a hospital and all of that. And in fact, he would have died. And his parents actually wrote to me and said, thank goodness you were there. And where would everyone's fantasy dinner parties be now if I hadn't been there? It's a good story. I enjoyed looking back, and it's an awful lot of big names in there, If you want to know why George Harrison tried to persuade me to drink my own wee, well, you'll have to take a look at the book. And Robert De Niro stealing my food. Oh, there's lots and lots of good stories in there. But it's really the story of a comic writer. So I've unpacked, as young people say, that process.
Well, I mean, you talk about the comic writer, but, for me, whenever I was growing up and seeing you do stand-up and, you were out there and Maggie Thatcher was, right in the target zone for you. And then I didn't realise until I read this that later on you got invited to dinner with her.
Well, yes. I mean, the day I dodged dinner with Thatcher, I didn't go. I mean, she didn't invite me. I hasten to add, we must have Ben round, Dennis. No, it was... I worked with Andrew Lloyd Webber. I wrote a musical with him, and he became a very dear friend, and he's a very mischievous bloke, quite a prankster. And I remember he said, we must get Ben and Thatch together, because, of course, he was friends with Mrs Thatcher, because they're both Tories, and people, oh, you work with a Tory. I don't know how people vote when I work with them. I'm not going to work with a Nazi, but I'll work with Tories. I don't know how, Blimey, we live in a democracy. Anyway, Andrew's a dear friend, and he wanted to have this idea, but I didn't want to do it. And I'll tell you why. Because I knew I'd like her. I mean, she was clearly a fascinating and extraordinary woman. I mean, without doubt. I mean, I disagreed with virtually everything she ever said or did. I mean, viscerally disagreed with her. But nonetheless, she was a conviction politician, not like, the likes of a Boris Johnson, who is a genuinely despicable figure because he is obviously motivated exclusively by venal self-interest and a grotesque sense of entitlement. Whereas Thatcher, for all the fact I disagreed with her, was a principled politician. She did it because she believed she was right to do it. And she was honest about saying what she wanted to do. And I didn't want to kind of come away having let myself down. I knew I'd be polite, because I'm always polite. And, she's an old lady. And so in the end, I just thought, I don't want to do that. I don't want to find myself, being... I turned down a chance to sit next to history. And as somebody who loves history and studies it very, very much as a hobby, I still regret it. But I just didn't want to feel at the end of the day I hadn't confronted her and taken her on. And anyway, I didn't do it.
And we now know why you didn't get that knighthood. You mentioned...
Never mind a knighthood, as I
say. You mentioned Boris Johnson there, and we're sort of living in an era where... Is it harder to satirise politicians now in this sort of post-truth world?
It's almost impossible. I mean, we have a generation of politicians now who are trolling the world. I mean, Trump obviously is the grandmaster, but Johnson was another, who embrace their venality. They literally say, hey, it's like a gangster saying, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to shaft you. I mean, what do you expect? And it's almost charming, the honesty. The problem is, principle is kind of off-putting. People always want to find fault with anyone who tries to do good. But if somebody says, oh, yeah, I dodged the tax, oh, well, who wouldn't? It's funny, there's a kind of feeling of comradeship with roguedom, and it's deeply depressing. It'll destroy democracy because we now have a generation of politicians. I mean, I don't know really how you're feeling about it. Well, we've got a big election going on today, yeah. But certainly I think this idea of actually sort of leaning into your own iniquity, which is what essentially Trumps and the Johnsons of this world do, which is to say, hey, you know what I'm going to do, what did you expect, kind of thing. And of course it's very sad because we live in not just post-truth age, a post-principle age. No one is held accountable. If you tell a lie, you can just tell something else tomorrow. I think we are living in a dangerous time for democracy, and blimey, it's all good. Let's bring back Westlife, for goodness' sake. I was enjoying this show.
Let's not. I mean,
I was enjoying this show till that lefty Brit came on and started banging on about politics. Blimey.
It's good stuff. I mean, but it's good to see that you still got that fire in the belly.
Oh, you've still got to believe. You can't. I think the greatest threat to democracy is people giving up. The worst thing you want to hear is people say, oh, they're all the same. They're not all the same. And you've got a duty to make a choice. You can choose somebody that I don't agree with, but think about it. Don't take the lazy option. They're all in it for themselves. They're not all in it for themselves. Some of them are, and some of them are not just hiding in plain sight. They're dancing all the way to the bank in plain sight. But, the fact that we live in an age of greatly decreased expectation and lack of principle shouldn't lead us all to go, oh, well, we might as well give up then. Because, frankly, that is the road to hell.
Look, you might have got the knighthood, but if you can find an Irish passport, there's another presidential election in 7 years' time. Look, it's brilliant to have you on the show. This is a great read. I really, really enjoyed it. One more time, Ben Elton.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.